All right, dog. How'd you do on your goals this week? Actually, what were your goals? Yours were
My physical goal was 95 push-ups, and my intellectual goal was finish that book, How to Talk to Anyone.
okay. Okay. How'd you do on your physical goal?
I did it.
I know you did.
I got it. 95, baby. Next, I got to hit 100.
That's disgusting. Ah, okay.
And
Well,
I finished that book, so
okay.
I got my goals done.
Sorry if there's like a flash of light. It's super windy in this room, so um, it's really windy. As per my physical goal, I think it was just the power stance. I wanted to do that every day just to see what it was like. Uh, just anecdotally speaking, I loved it. I loved just in the morning doing 2 minutes of like power stance. I was a little weird at first. It felt like standing like Superman every morning for like 2 minutes, but it felt great. Um, and it's
Do you have a
supposedly,
balcony?
huh?
Do you have a balcony or something?
I mean, we do have a porch, but
I would stand like at the tallest place looking down on everyone as I do that.
no, that would be weird. Right. Um, that would be really weird. And then intellectual goal, I think my was to finish one of Neville Goddard's books. I'm not too sure. I finished three of his books this last week. They're all really, really short. His books are like 40 pages to like 100 pages. Um, it was either that or Ask and It Was Given by Esther and Jerry Hicks, which I finished that one as well. That one was really, really good. If you ever want to read any book on manifestation, that one's like top notch. Um, but I know that we had talked last week about a couple of things that had increased testosterone. Um, and I kind of wanted to expand on that just because I have a couple of things that I wanted to. Well, I know that a lot of people are getting into ashwagandha right now. I don't know if you started taking ashwagandha or no.
Yeah, I've been taking ashwagandha
You have?
recently. Yep.
So I got my brother on it. He loves it. So obviously it decreases stress, which in turn increases testosterone. But they did a study. It was an 8-week study, just on a group of guys, large scale, and they found after 8 weeks, they found a total increase of 15% on testosterone. That's total testosterone. That's not just free, but total, um, which is huge. And I know that I had talked about sugar decreasing testosterone at some point in time, but I don't think I expanded a lot on that. So I've done a lot of research on how much sugar like decreases testosterone, and it's 75 milligrams drop testosterone by 25%, right? Which that's like just a whole bag of like gummy worms, not like a big bag, like a normal bag of gummy worms. Um, that's a whole quarter of somebody's testosterone just gone after eating gummy worms, which is kind of sad. And then 50 grams of sugar. I hope I didn't say 75 milligrams. 75 grams of sugar, but 50 grams of sugar, it's basically a whole can of Coke or a whole can of Pepsi, will drop your testosterone by 16.6%, um, which is still a lot. So just a single can of soda will drop your testosterone by 15%, which I thought was like, well, it's over 15%. I thought that was brutal. I thought that was like really sad because I used to go to like Jack in the Box and get those like 30 or 40 ounce like sodas when I was like
You're
17 and fill those up with Dr. Pepper. And you'd like drink a whole one and then you'd go back for your like second cup and like fill it up for the road. And
well,
I think it's bad.
soda's bad, man.
Oh yeah, soda's
Like
brutal.
if you're trying to like cut or lose weight and you actually look at what soda has in all the calories and all the sugar, you're like, this is horrible.
Oh
So
yeah, it's straight up cancer. It's pretty bad. No, sodas. I'll bash on all soda companies. Like 99% of sodas out there. If you're going over 25 grams of sugar, you're doing a disservice to your testosterone in general. But I found out that honey actually increases testosterone because of the boron in it. and there's some other trace
Hmm.
minerals as well. But the boron is used as a natural test booster, and a lot of like the test boosters you'll find at like Walmart, stuff like that, just those like over the counter ones. But honey in general is actually really, really good for your testosterone. So it's a sugar that you can have. I wouldn't recommend doing like 50 grams of honey though. That sounds like a lot. It sounds like an excessive amount of honey. I mean, who knows? Do whatever you want. But
I think doing my own research on testosterone, I think anything simple carbs, I think it damages your testosterone.
mhm,
Um, Looking more into it, like the whole grains and actual whole foods, where it's not, the less processed it is, I think just from what I've seen is the more processes that they put into it, the more damage it does to your testosterone, I think.
mhm. That's that's definitely something I've noticed. I feel like the more processed a food is, the harder it is for your body just to digest it in general. And so, and it just doesn't do any, like if you think of so one of my like tactics to being able to like utilize creatine is heating up water and putting the creatine inside of it. However, if you add an acid of sorts, orange juice, um, the longer that the creatine stays in the acidic heat, it denatures and turns into creatinine, which is the basically what your body excretes after it uses the creatine. But it's a really slow process. But I found out like essentially like the the longer something is held under heat, or if you think of processed foods, like they heat everything up, they melt everything down, they put things together, they rearrange it into a chip form, call it a Dorito, whatever, and then they're like, yeah, here you go. Like it looks pretty, but it completely destroys your gut. Um, and it just speaks to, I mean, a lot of just the processed foods in general. Like there's a lot of work that goes into taking the food, ripping it down, turning it into something else, and then making it edible again. That alone just doesn't sound like it's good for you in general. So
Doesn't sound appetizing.
no, no. Um, One of my buddies hit me up the other actually today this morning, and he was asking me about creatine. He was like, "Hey, I saw one of your videos. Um, I'm scared to start creatine because last time I had it, it made me dehydrated, or I noticed I was dehydrated more." And I pointed out, and I was like, creatine doesn't dehydrate you. It lets you know when you're dehydrated. Like if you take creatine, you're going to know when you're dehydrated. You're like, wow, I don't feel good. Because most people don't know how much water they should be taking in the day. And a lot of people are substituting their water with soda, coffee, other things that aren't water. And their body doesn't give them a lot of signals and let them know that they're dehydrated. And one thing to note is when you take creatine, you will get thirsty, like a lot. You'll be thirsty throughout the day. You'll be like, man, I want water, I want water, I want water. And you'll think like, creatine's dehydrating me. No, creatine's letting you know that you need to drink more water. Yes, you'll pee more. Yes, you'll sweat a little bit more, but it lets you know that you need to take in more water, which I think is pretty amazing. I think that's pretty great. But he was a little worried about it. He's like, I just don't want to be dehydrated. And I was like, I mean, you're missing out because it's
Yeah,
not,
drink water then.
yeah, drink water and you'll be fine.
Well, creatine is the process in which hydrates the muscles pretty much. I mean, creatine is like the number one studied supplement out
Mhm.
there. It's pretty crazy. And how, if you look at it, I mean, there were some studies that kind of went to a negative side of creatine, but
Mhm.
the only way they went to the negative side of creatine is because uh, the control group was dehydrated.
Yeah,
It's the only that, and it wasn't necessarily negative. It just wasn't optimized, right?
yeah,
So you do need to be hydrated when you're drinking creatine, because I mean that's what creatine is. It's the storage of water in your muscles. I mean, so it's really important to be hydrated.
yeah. And like, I mean, I think I talked about it in the first video. Like one of the main processes of it creating explosive energy in the body, um, that process is ATP-PC. So adenosine triphosphate phosphocreatine. So to people who are on like a whole foods diet who don't say somebody's vegetarian, and I've done the whole vegetarian diet. I'm now carnivore diet now. Um, full carnivore. I still eat fruits and vegetables. Um, and people are like, oh, like I feel really good on a, vegetarian diet. And nothing wrong with that. Like, I think that's fine. So long as you're removing processed foods, I think you'll feel a lot better. But if you notice on a vegetarian diet, you have a lot of, it's almost a slower energy. It's almost a lot more calm because you're not getting as much creatine in. When you have a more carnivorous diet, it's more explosive energy because you have a lot more creatine in your diet. Um, and just to give like general recommendations across the board, if you are anywhere between like 60 pounds to 120 pounds, you should be taking 3 grams of creatine a day. And I just did this so I can make sure that I could give people the right advice on this. And then if you're 121 pounds to 200 pounds, you should be taking in 5 grams of creatine a day. And if you're over 200 pounds, you should be getting at least 8 grams of creatine every single day. And unless you're eating 8 pounds of beef, I guarantee you're not getting your creatine amount in at all, which is crazy.
Yeah.
And you'll notice the difference too, like energy wise. You'd be like, wow, I feel amazing when you actually have the adequate amount of creatine in your body. So I personally eat 2 pounds of beef every day. So I only need like 5 grams of creatine supplemented every day after that. Good. Most people don't want to eat 2 pounds of beef.
I remember getting first into supplements, and I was kind of hesitant because, I mean, you think about it, you're like, why can't I get these things naturally? Why can't I get these things in the food I eat every day?
Mhm.
And I mean, part of it is the process in which people make the food. I mean, you look at most pre-made foods or most fast food restaurants, and you actually look at the macros in there, and you're like, oh, there's like no protein. Protein's expensive, and no one wants to give it to you.
Mhm.
And so, yeah, and then with the protein comes the creatine. And so, if you look into the details, you're like, this is why supplements are important, is
Mhm.
because you're not going to get these things naturally unless you're insane, you're actually going out and buying all this stuff. But supplements are pretty essential.
Yeah. Unless you're living a very abundant whole foods diet, you're not going to get the macronutrients, the trace minerals, and all the things that you need to live optimally. And most people don't know that. And they're like, yeah, man, I can eat Pop Tarts and ramen noodles and pizza, and I'll get my I'll get my vitamin A, vitamin E, like vitamin K, my B6. No, like if you're not eating handfuls of your berries, you're not getting your B vitamins. If you're not eating your nuts, you're not getting your like omegas. If you're not eating fish every day, you're not getting your DHA, EPA, like omegas. There's so many things that people are missing in their diet, and they're like, oh, I've got headaches, or I've got this, like I'm dehydrated, or I don't have enough energy. And all of these things just come down to macronutrients. It's like, do you have the things in your body to give you that outcome? If not, find out what it is and give it to yourself, which I found at a really young age came from supplementation. Because I was like, I'm not going to eat that many bananas. I'm not going to eat that many apples. Like, well, maybe eat one. And then, which, don't get me wrong, like eating a lot of fruit is really good for you. So if you do that and you have access to fruit, which I do here, but it's very different kind of fruit. It's a lot more tropical. I don't have like apples or peaches. We do have those, but it's just not like fully in season. We just bought some plums the other day, and they were disgusting. They were rough. I missed the plums in Idaho, man. Those were good.
I
Those were
don't
really
even
good.
eat plums.
What?
I don't even eat plums.
Oh, you
I
don't?
probably should.
You probably should. They're good for you.
No, one thing I went into studying this week, which is really interesting about nutrition, is the nutrients required in muscle growth and muscle building.
Mhm.
And I'm sure those correlate along with, testosterone. But I sent you I think I sent you something on it.
Mhm.
Is you need trace minerals and potassium are extremely important when
Yep.
it comes to muscle growth. Because when people think muscle growth, I mean, and I'm guilty of it. Not still learning a lot about nutrition is like, yeah, just protein is protein. And then you finally learn about creatine. You're like, okay, protein and creatine, right? But then you actually look into like the process in which muscles are grown and the nutrients that are required is potassium is extremely important. And I
Mhm.
realize I haven't been getting nearly enough potassium. I mean, potassium is in certain foods that I haven't been eating.
Yeah.
And the trace minerals, I mean, it's important to get multivitamins, and multivitamins have a lot of those trace minerals. But even looking at the multivitamins I've been taking, um, they're missing a lot of essential of those trace minerals that I need to get the muscle growth, like magnesium, iron, calcium, like all those things. And so it's kind of crazy. Like the deeper you dive into nutrition, you realize there's always more you could focus on and better to your diet.
Yeah. You spoke about magnesium. Most people don't know about the benefits of magnesium. So if you have crappy sleep quality, if you have a hard time falling asleep, or you have a hard time repairing muscles, most likely you're deficient in magnesium. And I'd say the majority of men are deficient in magnesium. And if you have like crap sleep, just try supplementation. Obviously, consult a physician before you start any new. I have to preface by saying that, but if you have terrible sleep quality, try magnesium. It will change your life. Just taking it 30 minutes before bed. And if you have a gnarly workout session and you're really, really sore every day afterwards, like if you just keep getting like, if you can't really recover as fast, it's probably because number one, your sleep quality sucks. And number two, you probably don't have enough magnesium in your body. And magnesium is incredibly imperative for repairing those muscles. And most people don't know that, as well as muscle relaxation while you sleep. And if you're like tense while you sleep, you're not going to recover. You're not going to have the adequate blood flow to your body, actually recover, to actually sleep properly. But yeah, like you said, like you have to do a lot of your own self-studying to find out what you're deficient in, what you're not getting, and what you should be getting, because nobody's taught these things. Like we've had to go out over the last 13 years after so long and figure this stuff out for ourselves. Like I took a NASM course for personal training, and that was one of the best decisions I ever made for my physical health. Nobody has the time. I mean, they probably do. A lot of people probably have the time to take a NASM course, but it's a 700-page book. Like, but it gives you so much about the body that like I had no clue for years. There were so many things that I was like upper cross syndrome, lower cross syndrome, like these muscles tight here cause like the body to walk this way, like your feet, the way your feet are positioned, like there's unhealthy feet positions, like there's so much that you just don't know. You have no clue about in like real life. People like they don't tell you like, hey, you walk unhealthy. Like the way you walk is unhealthy. You're like, what do you mean? Like that's lower cross, that's upper cross. Nobody tells you these things. And a lot of these things just go back to like living a better life, like making life easier, making your sleep better, like recovery after a workout, like fluid and just effortless almost. And it's sad because like none of us were taught these things. One thing that's really popping off right now is cold exposure. And I don't know if you heard about the Sakamoto study that was done in 1991 for cold exposure before or after training. But they found that so long as you do cold exposure before high intensity training, your body will increase human growth hormones. And there will be a gradual increase even after training. So say you want to do cold exposure, what it does is it releases heat shock proteins in the body, and your body utilizes those. And those steady increase after your workout. But if you do a hard workout and then you do cold exposure after your workout, it will mute all HGH in your body. It will completely mute testosterone, and it will just halt like protein synthesis, which is crazy. Most people don't know that. They're like, okay, I'm going to do a hard workout and then I'm going to do cold exposure. And they don't understand that it's actually like killing any sort of anabolic gains that your body's trying to put on. So my recommendation is do cold exposure. It's called pre-cooling. Cold exposure before a high intensity interval training or before training at all in general. Because my dad's going to be getting into cold plunges. And I was like, hey, make sure you're doing them before you train, not after. Because I used to do them after all the time. I'd go run like 8 miles, and the first thing I wanted to do was get into a cold shower. I'm like, yeah, let's get into a cold shower, immediately cool off. And it was like the worst thing I could have done for myself. Not the worst, but it's not beneficial to number one, hypertrophy, and then also like HGH in the body, just natural human growth hormones that you want your body to be releasing. So that's just a little piece of advice that has helped me a ton in the last couple of weeks, especially with like recovery and growth in general. I don't know if if you started doing cold showers or anything like that.
I have my experience with cold showers. And I've looked at studies. I mean, if you look at the natural, body mechanics, if you expose yourself to cold temperature, the body's naturally going to warm itself up. The same with warm temperatures, the body is naturally going to cool itself down. So a lot of people say at nighttime it's important to take warm showers or expose yourself to warmth because then your body will naturally cool, and when you're cool, you sleep better. And the same it kind of applies to this is if you expose yourself to cold before the training, your body's naturally going to, in the inside, it's all going to warm up, which is ideal for performance and obviously working out. And so just looking at, the natural body mechanics, it makes sense.
I love that. Listening to the body. Somebody had a comment on one of my videos, I think this last week. It was like, yeah, I'm just gonna listen to my body. I'm gonna drink beer, eat pizza. And I like to remind people that everything you do is input output, and the output is a lot of times delayed. So you smoke a cigarette, immediate output is pleasure, right? So if we see this as baseline, and we smoke a cigarette, and that's the first thing we're seeking is pleasure, that's not the output. The output is here. So if you seek, let's take another instance. Let's say running 2 miles. First thing you experience is pain, right? Running the 2 miles. But the output is now next week you have the ability to run 3 or 4 miles. Also, your metabolism's increased. Also, your skin's a lot better. Also, your body's processing nutrients a lot healthier in a better manner. You're relieving yourself at a normal time every day instead of like every other day, which I've heard a lot of people have been struggling with. They're like, hey, like, this guy hit me up this last week and he's like, I'm super constipated. What do I do? And I'm like, go running, like go exercise, and your body will force itself to relieve itself. It will remove the toxins. It will make it happen if you work out. And there's input and output. And so a lot of times if we seek pain first, there will be joy or experience, like actual growth in the end. But if we seek pleasure first, there will be suffering. And I've noticed that in a lot of our choices. So we seek the beer or whatever, we seek like cigarette, and it's pleasure first, and then there's the outcome. Or we seek like the apple, or we're eating, or we're reading, and it's kind of painful to read, or it's kind of painful to play guitar. We seek the pain first, and then there's the reward. And we have to think of things as this input output, as this a little move up and then a big move down, or a little move down and a big move up. And if you think about it, if this was baseline and it was smoke a cigarette, okay, now I have withdrawals, and say like now I'm craving, I get irritable over the littlest things. So you smoke another one for a little bit of pleasure, and again we're going even further down into, okay, now I really need it next time somebody pisses me off or something doesn't go my way or whatever. And now I'm putting whatever, all of these carcinogens in my lungs. Take another little, hit up, pleasure. If you're seeking pleasure, you'll find an excessive amount of suffering. But if we're seeking pain, or when I say pain, I mean like, I like to think of pain as like the thing that 99% of people don't want to do, but you can do easily. So if it's reading a book,
I like the word discomfort.
Discomfort. That's a good one. That's a good one. If you seek the discomfort, not actual like pleasure, but if you seek the discomfort, reading, obviously that's not always comfortable. Some of us, after you've read for a lot longer, you find a lot of comfort in reading. But first trying to start reading more, you're going to be like, I don't enjoy this. But if you seek it, there's a massive reward, right? So we should be seeking those pains. Say it's playing the guitar. You spend 2 hours playing the guitar. Okay, now you can play like half of an entire song, whatever. You have all of this skill. You have 4 chords at least. You have however much more skill. Say it's working out for an hour. Your body's processing nutrients better. You have a higher metabolism now. Like you're experiencing that growth. You do it again. You choose that discomfort, working out, and now even more. There's a lot more reward and a lot better of a life that we can live if we understand input output on this framework of, instead of seeking pleasure, we should seek discomfort first. We should always seek discomfort because the universe balances itself out. It always does. And the output is always delayed, in my opinion. I've always found it to be delayed. Even though like a lot of times we find like an immediate output of like, oh, pleasure when we do a certain activity. We're like, oh, I feel pleasure when I do this. Okay, but there's still another output that's coming. There's still more output. And every single thing that we do, what we put into our body.
Absolutely.
You drink soda, that's a pleasureful input, but the output is a shit metabolism. Okay. Instead, you eat the apple. It's not the most enjoyable thing for some people. For some people, they love it. They're like, yeah, that's great. But for a majority of people, it's discomfort. They're like, I don't want to eat an apple. 99% of people would choose the soda over the apple because it's not, pleasure. But you choose the discomfort and the reward is delayed. And I think we need to be more observant of those things. And so when I say listen to your body, I don't mean like choose pleasure all of the time because, well, the output is delayed. If you choose pleasure all of the time, you will seek self-annihilation completely. Which,
Yeah, this goes exactly along the line of this idea, and I'm trying to write a book on this idea. It's
mm-hmm,
just basically in life you have these two choices when it comes to everything. You could choose now, or you could choose the future. If you choose now, you're going to be choosing the pleasures, right? I'm going to
mm-hmm,
drink the soda, but you don't get to choose the future. The consequences are given to you. You get diabetes, you get obese. You don't get to choose the future. Or you could choose the future. I want to be fit, I want to be healthy. But you don't get to choose the present, right? Because
mm-hmm.
you got to do things you don't want to do. You got to do this uncomfortable things. You got
Yeah,
to work out. You got to eat healthy. And so when it comes to that, it's just I really like that idea. It's just there's a choice of now or the future, and the future is always the better choice because
yeah,
the now is just indulging in pleasures, and everything nowadays is just dopamine. Just drink the soda is like, oh, dopamine.
mm-hmm,
And that's also why I don't like the idea of hearing people say I'm going to listen to my body, because so many people are used to that dopamine, and dopamine is your body,
mm-hmm,
right?
yeah,
But we abuse that chemical. That chemical is meant to reward us. It's meant to, after we work out, after we do something good, eat something healthy. It's
mm-hmm,
meant to be a long-term reward, but society has kind of shaped it into a short-term pleasure reward, which is not healthy. And so if you go, I listen to my body. If I listen to my body, I go eat candy. I drink soda all day long. I do things that aren't going to bring me good things in the long run.
mm-hmm,
And so I don't like the idea of listening to your body. I think it goes, you need to be able to be educated, and
mm-hmm,
need to be able to understand your body long
yeah,
term, not short term. And if you're educated and you listen to your body long term, then you would make the right choice.
yeah,
But the whole idea of listening to your body, I think it's just,
yeah.
it's
See, and when I
not
when I
good.
say it, a lot of people should immediately be like rewards. And if you actually listen to your body, if you actually think, okay, seek the pleasure, but then my body experiences this. And it's like, okay, that wasn't a good experience for my body. And if I listen to my body, it will give me signals that things are bad for me, right? I drink too much soda, I've got now excessive weight gain. I'm now really tired. My sleep is absolute crap. My circadian rhythm's off. Okay, my body's telling me something's wrong. And this goes back to like even my macronutrients. Like even now, recently I was getting nosebleeds for a while, and I was like, something's off. I'm missing something in my diet. I was like, why am I getting nosebleeds in the night again? Like this has never happened. This happened when I was a child, and I was like, okay, I've got to listen to my body. What's off? And I was like, it's my iron. I need more iron intake. And so I started supplementing just a couple of iron a week, maybe every other day, and they just completely stopped. But it's just a lot of people when they think, oh, listen to my body, it's like, oh, relax. I'm tired, like relax. And it's like, no, there's the output is always delayed. And I think Alex Hormozy talks about it a lot. Is you should be constantly seeking delayed gratification. That's something you should constantly be looking for in your work, in your friendships, in everything, in your physique, all of it, your diet. You should be consistently aiming for delayed gratification, not immediate gratification, because immediate gratification will always result in suffering, delay. And I love that. I really, really like that, to understand that immediate gratification will result in delayed suffering. Because it's
Yeah,
true.
it goes along the lines of the dopamine, because if you're delaying that gratification, and then that way you're letting your body naturally give you that dopamine in the ways that it
Mhm.
should, instead of seeking it other ways. And so it's just a lot more healthier way of living life. I mean, I like to think of the quote, anything worth anything involves patience. And so you need to wait for things that are going to benefit you long term. And if you're seeking things immediately,
Mhm.
like you're seeking immediate rewards, those aren't going to help you. Like they never will. Even if you think they are, even if you do win that gamble, or whatever it is, it's long term, that's not going to bring you the happiness and the real rewards that you need in life.
Mhm. 100%, 100%. Uh, that's something I struggled with for a long time, was choosing delayed gratification on a lot of things, especially with the solar industry that I was working here in Hawaii. Is a lot of people are like, oh, like you get paid so much money, and I'm like, you have to wait 6 months to get paid. Like for every deal that you sell, they're like, yo, that's terrible. Like that sounds horrible. And it teaches you the most intense delayed gratification ever. Because you'd sell a deal and you're like, okay, great money, sweet. I don't get paid on that for 6 months, sometimes a year. Like I still have jobs in the pipeline. I don't even work there anymore. They're still in the pipeline. They're scheduled for like this next year. And they've been in there for like a year and a half now. And it teaches like the most intense like delayed gratification. A lot of people don't want that. Even then, that was like too much for me. I was like, this is ridiculous. Like this is long, long term. This is insane. Um, and a lot of people will point at like the government of like, oh, like the permitting department's corrupt, whoever's corrupt, and there is a lot of like shady work that goes on that does prevent things from going through quickly here. But at the end of the day, I still think that delayed gratification is important for a lot of people. Like I had a manager that thrives in this market. He's been thriving in this market for 12 years. And I think he makes north of 600,000 a year just selling solar, which is insane. And it shows that he's so comfortable with the delayed gratification that he doesn't care. He's just like, I don't care when this is going to come through. Next one, let's go. Next one, let's go. Next one, let's go. Like it doesn't matter. He knows that each one of these deals may take a year, may take 6 months. Some of them take 3 months. And then the blue moon that, it's in his favor, it takes 2 months, which is very rare. But he's very, very comfortable with that delayed gratification. And I think that speaks a lot about anybody's character in general, is if you can seek delayed gratification, you will have immense reward. But if you seek immediate gratification, the reward will be suffering, excessive suffering. Because, I mean, if you look at anything that's immediate reward, like cigarettes, alcohol, like soda, you drink enough soda, if you slap that dopamine button of soda every single day, you will have the delayed suffering in about 6 months. You will see it happen. That 6 month time span of drinking soda every day, you'll see it. And you'll be like, damn, that wasn't worth it. That wasn't worth it. But if you quit soda for 6 months, that delayed gratification will add up. And like it adds up in a beautiful way. I think I saw this on there was a Post Malone uh, podcast that just got released a little while ago. He lost 60 pounds just by quitting soda, just because he quit soda. He's like, I was really, really tired, whatnot. I think he was what he was saying, and he was doing a bunch of shows, and he just decided that he was going to quit drinking soda. And he had lost 60 pounds in like a very short amount of time. He was absolutely mind blowing. He's like, it's crazy. Soda's evil for you. It's crazy what it does to the body, and it is. It's absolutely like cancerous. But they sell it everywhere. They make it incredibly accessible. Anywhere you walk into a grocery store, you ready to check out? First thing you see is a soda fridge. Anything you want, any soda you want, it's right there, ready to check out. There you go. Go to the movies, ready to leave. There you go. Soda's right there. Go to a gas station, it's right there. It's perfect, right set up. It's like glorified. I won't make it worse. I'm just increasing people's cravings when I talk about that. I'm
When talking about this delayed gratification, I think one important thing to look at is emotions and the importance we give to emotions and how we follow our emotions. And this is one interesting concept that I've been thinking about is, I always joke around like your emotions don't matter. But in a way they do.
Mhm.
But in a lot of ways they don't. Like when it comes to personal development and discipline, how you feel doesn't really weigh that much on how you're going to improve your life.
Mhm.
Because, if you wake up, depressed, it doesn't matter. You have responsibilities to do. Like if you want to improve your life, you got to go to work, you got to hit the gym, you got to eat healthy.
Hmm.
You know, if regardless of how you feel, I mean, a lot of people, they'll dive into these crazy bad habits and addictions because of how they feel and
Hmm.
what they give into their emotions. And we've all been there. We've all
Oh yeah.
been like, I've had a bad day, or I'm super upset, I'm super angry or something, and they're like, how would be nice to give into this, who to relieve my emotions, right? And that because of the value. But a disciplined person would say, it doesn't matter, how I feel. I'm not going to give into that. I'm going to continue doing what I need to do because that's what I need to do, and that's how I'm going to get to where I need to get to.
Mhm.
And so I just think it's interesting to look at like what value we give emotions in playing these roles, and the less value we give in regards to personal development, I think the better off we become.
Yeah, you're definitely right on that. And I there's a lot of truth to like just ignoring a lot of the emotions you have. Because if you think about it, you have a lot of crazy thoughts in the day. Like you've got thoughts in the day that you're like, yeah, that was stupid. Like I definitely should not do that. But they come to mind. And those come with
Mm-hmm.
feelings. Those come with automatic feelings, right? Like, this red light's taking too long. I should just gun it, you know? Obviously, that's not a good choice, and you're not going to do that. But it comes with an emotion of like excitement, of like, if you just played into that and decided to just roll with that emotion and you get lit up, like, obviously, that's not a good choice. And so, to an extent, we understand that our emotions, a lot of the time, a lot of our feelings are just completely invalid. They're not important, and sometimes they are. Sometimes they do give us signals of like when something's off. Like when somebody passes away, it's okay to like feel that, to experience that, but don't unpack in it, don't live in it, don't allow that to inhabit your body indefinitely. Like feel it, okay, it sucks, feel it deeply, okay, now let's get back to work, let's get back to doing the things we need to do. It's okay, like life happens. And even worst case scenarios, people, when we talk death, a lot of people are like, oh, like this person passed away, this person died. It's okay to feel sad. It is okay to like experience that. But if you unpack in that, it will completely demolish your life, completely demolish your life. And you still have shit to do. You still have so much to do. And I think a lot of people allow their sadness or allow their negative emotions to govern them a lot more than they should in general. I think that if you understand that the majority of your emotions aren't really worth that much when it comes to the grand scheme of what you want to accomplish or the things you want to do, if you have a big goal in mind, somebody say something bad happens, somebody passes, you experience that, right? You go through the funeral, you go through all of this. What benefit is it to you to stay in that emotion any longer? Like it happened, it happens to every living thing that ever exists throughout all of time that has ever existed, all of life, everything passes away, everything dies. This is the worst case scenario in your mind, is somebody passing away. There's really nothing worse if you think about it. Like that's to us as humans and as mortals, like, oh, that's the worst absolute thing that we can experience. Somebody close. Yes, it sucks. Yes, it happens. But the longer you stay in it, the further back you are. Like the further back you set yourself. So experience it, understand it, feel it. Let's move forward because you still have shit to do and there's still a lot more that you want to accomplish. And this is something that like I felt like I had to learn at a really young age. It's just like moving through those emotions. Like the emotion hits, oh crap. And I'm more right brain leaning anyway. And so when like something emotional or somebody would pass or something would happen, I'd really lean into it. I'd really lean into that experience. And to a detriment though, to a detriment of my life. Like I would choose to lean into it a little more emotionally. I'm like, okay, wait, no. We need to be more structured. We need to find more structure. And ignoring a lot of your emotions goes back to your structures, your habits. Because if you don't have a habit of working out and you don't have a habit of taking care of yourself, when that thing happens, when the person passes, you have no way of processing. You have no way of actually moving through that. You have no structure in place to move you through that. And so I think that's a huge thing, especially you're very left brain leaning. You're very, very structured. So when I've seen you go through like bad things and like hard times, and you're very like quick to start solving the problem, to start moving forward structurally. And I think that's incredibly important. Where where me, that was my fault. I wasn't very structural. So when things would happen, I would feel it too much. Where like when we were children, you probably didn't feel it as much. You'd feel it, and then you'd move right into the workout, and you're like, "Let's go," forget it. Who cares? Nobody gives a damn. It's like, wait, bro, like,
Yeah.
are you sad? Like, are you okay? Like, how you feeling? Like, it doesn't matter. Let's go. And we need. I mean, obviously, emotions help us connect with other humans. This is important to understand. Emotions are important for helping connect, but emotions are not really that important when it comes to getting things done. When it comes to trying to build something great, it is good to listen to your emotions of your desires and the things you want to build, but don't unpack in any emotion. Don't unpack in any of them at all. I think unpacking in any emotion is incredibly unhealthy. You'll get bored, or you'll be dead. I think that,
Yeah.
I mean, unpacking in any emotion will be a detriment to your life. So feel them all,
I I
or find your structure.
I like how you said that. It's important. I don't think it's important to ignore them, and I don't think you should. But understand, the grand scheme of things. And I think there's a deep concept behind this is, and I always like relate it to the gym, And I remember times where I felt various of emotions, and that affected the playlist I put on in the gym, and that affected how I worked in the gym. So I think it's important to feel your emotions and control those emotions and use those emotions to drive you to where you need to go. If you're sad, like embrace it, say, yeah, I'm sad. Don't put it off, don't ignore it, don't suppress it. Say, I am sad. Okay, now let's get what I need to get done. And I'm going to use that emotion to get me there. I think that's a cool idea and cool concept, but you got to control it, right? It has to be in a controlled fashion. There's several times where I've been angry. I'm like, all right, let's go hit the gym, right?
Yeah.
And then I may have used that anger in a non-controlled fashion to where I injured myself. I'm putting on too much weight. I'm going too hard in a way that it's not controlled. And so I think there's an important idea that it's okay to feel these emotions. But if you live in these emotions, it's going to affect you negatively. Like, you need to use these emotions, control these emotions, and then they could actually help you get to where you need to get to.
Yeah.
And personally, I think that's important. And emotions definitely, like you were saying at the end there, are more important when it comes to relationships. Like, you definitely need to, and that's why me, being more rational, is I struggle more with relationships than you do because you're more emotional. And so emotions are important when it comes to relationships because that's how you connect with people, and that's how we thrive, in relationships. So,
Yeah. I also think that emotions are imperative creative building blocks. Without emotions, you would have no drive to build or do anything, really. And I like that you say you should essentially aim your emotions. You should direct them in a specific direction. Like, you should pick your thing, take the emotion of whatever's really big right now. Like I said before, the example of somebody passing, you take that to the gym, you're going to have the craziest workout of your life. Like, you're going to have the absolute craziest workout of your life. Somebody breaks your heart, I'm telling you right now, you have no better workout than after a breakup. There's no better workout. I'll put that on God. There's no better workout than after a breakup. And I think they're imperative for making connections, but also as creative building blocks. But we shouldn't let them govern us. We shouldn't unpack in them. We shouldn't let them be our identity. A lot of people will take their emotions and make them their identity. Like, oh, I'm a victim to this. This happened to me, and so now I am this way. No, that happened to you. What do you want to do with it? Like, what do you want to build with it? Not, I am this way now, and I'm going to forever be this way. You're not going to forever be that way. The emotion's going to pass. And you can either revisit it as many times as you want to sit in that space, or you can put it into something. You can put it into a workout, put it into a business, put it into something, put it into music. That's another thing we see, is like creative building blocks in music with emotion. That's one of the best examples I can even come up with, is when it comes to creating music, the best musical creators put so much emotion. I think there was a cover Jonathan Young did of Iris by Goo Goo Dolls, and it's this post-hardcore cover, and there's a point where he's like tearing up as he's like singing, and you can feel it. Like you could, when you watch this cover, you're like, damn, dude. And that's, you can feel those things, you can see those things when you listen to Elenium. A lot of his like earlier stuff, when he's really really doing it, I mean, it's, even now, like his music's amazing, but you can feel that, like the emotion that's put into something. And I think that emotion is imperative as a building block to the things you want, but not as an identity thing. You should never use an emotion as a part of your identity, or as a placeholder for where you want to place your identity. A lot of people will do that and become victims to their reality, and they won't use the emotion as a fuel source for whatever they're trying to create. So it's useful to
I
connect.
think
But
unlocking that, I think, is a really, because I remember personally, now that you bring that up, there's an experience. I think I went through a breakup or something, and it was pretty hard. It was rough on me. Um, but I remember bringing it into my music creation, into where I was able to just focus that and create a feeling from the song. And I remember tearing up from that, not because I was sad, because I was happy. I was happy that the emotion, I was happy to be sad. It was an interesting idea. And because when you are able to focus your emotions in that direction, like in a certain direction, and in music, yeah, is a really good example of that, is just, you could come up with something so cool. And I think everyone needs to ask themselves, whenever you're overwhelmed with an emotion, ask yourself, what you said is, how is this benefiting me?
yeah, how
And
can I
that's a
direct it?
really important question, because then by evaluating your emotion, where you want to go, and then how is this benefiting me, you can shape where you go with that emotion, and then it
Yeah,
will lead you to how you want to create your life.
yeah, I love that. I really really like that. And actually, I feel like that expanded a lot of my understanding on emotions for this last couple of years. These last 2 years have hands down, I'd say, were the hardest emotionally, but I gained the most. I'd say even though they were the hardest 2 years of my life, I have gained more than I've ever gained in my life. Knowledge wise, like everything. I've learned so much, and I've built so much structure for my life that I would be dead without. Like without the structure that I've been able to build from the hard time, I honestly don't think I would be here without it. So I do think that emotions are important, but I think they're important building blocks. And like you said, like figuring out where you want to put it, what you want to do with it. Like that's the most important thing. It's not unpacking in it. Figure out what you want to do with it. Don't just let it sit there, because it's just wasted
Hmm.
creative energy. And that's not fair to you, and that's not fair to anybody else. If Millennium didn't drop his songs, bro, you wouldn't be making the music you make right now. Like if he didn't put that emotion into those songs, like honestly, we wouldn't be as inspired. I don't think so. Like
Well, yeah,
it
you
would be,
change lives with it too. It's not
yeah,
only your life that's developing, is you're inspiring others and changing other lives
yeah,
because you're using your emotion effectively.
100%, 100%. Think about the Wright brothers. Like they probably genuinely were like super excited. Probably had something happen to them, and they're like, "We want to take flight. We're gonna do this. And we don't care about anything. Like broken hearts, nothing. Like it is what it is. Like we're gonna fly." And you'll change the world if you can direct your emotions into something. But if you waste them away and you let them deteriorate you and you let them sit you on a couch and be miserable, that's wasted creative energy. And I think you're doing yourself a disservice, everybody else a disservice, if you waste that energy. Because sad or happy, it can be used to build something. And I think that's incredibly important to understand. But yeah.
Yeah.
Well, let's go. Let's set new goals for this week. What do you physically want to achieve this week?
Um, so I'm recently recovered from my lat injury, and I was able to finally start doing pull-ups again.
Nice.
So this week I'm gonna set a goal of 25. I'm gonna try to do 25 in a set and try to get the pull-ups, work those
Damn.
back up.
You
So
recover from a lat injury, you go straight to 25. You're like, 25.
yes,
All right.
go hard.
Intellectual goal.
Um, I want to hold myself accountable, and like I said earlier, I want to write a book, and so I'm going to hold myself accountable to write a chapter of that book this week. I want to
Okay.
do that.
Okay, we'll touch base next week on that.
Yeah. What about you? Physical goal.
All right, physical goal. Now that I moved in, things are all set up. Headed to the gym in a minute. Um, and I'm back on my diet and I'm putting weight back on because I'm very light right now. I'm very, very, very light right now. I don't want to admit my weight and I'm not going to. But I want to be consistent at 200 to 250 grams of protein in that range for 7 days this week. So, not going to mess that up. I'm really, really low for the last couple of weeks. Like, really low, around 150. It's embarrassing. So 200 grams of protein and 5 brutal, brutal workouts. And I would like to hit 4 plates again for squat. So just I want a consistent week, but I'm gonna do my main goal is just the protein intake. I'll hit my workouts no matter what. Protein intake I have to hit 200 grams every day. So long as I do that, I will see growth. Um, Intellectual goal, should start another book. Okay. Um, I want to reread The Secret by Rhonda Byrne. That's the one I want to reread.
Hmm.
So I haven't read
Never
it
heard of that one.
in over a year, so I want to read that one. Sweet. That's my intellectual goal.
Sweet.
I got books. It's sad.
There's always more books.
There's always more books. There's one I do want to buy. I can't remember what it's called. It's like $70 though, and I was really surprised. It's like all of my books I spend like maybe $5 or less on. Um,
Yeah.
Evolutionary Psychology, I think. That's what it's called. It's an expensive book. Maybe I can find it used or something, but I don't know. I'll look at that. I'll look at that. All right. I think we've got our goals. I got to go hit the gym, but this is a good
Yeah.
one. All
Yeah.
right,
It's
Doc.
pretty good. It's been fun.